Syracuse had a chance to do a multitude of things, snap a 3-game losing streak, and send the seniors home with their final dome win of their careers. But instead, Miami traveled north and ransacked Syracuse in the final couple minutes to take a 75-72 win over Syracuse, sweeping the season series. We'll have all your coverage breakdowns as my analyst will join me and our reporter from the Dome chimes in as well. It's Orange Press Pass, and it starts right now. Welcome into Orange Press Pass in our CitrusTV studios. I'm Cameron Ezer, joined by my analysts Nick Luttrell and Ian Nicholas. A heartbreaking loss for Syracuse, 75-72 to drop the Orange to 15-16 at the end of the regular season. Nick, what are your first thoughts from this absolutely horrible loss?
It was tough, Cam. And my first reaction, my first thought was 10 points in 1 minute. That's unacceptable. When you have guards like Joe Girard and Buddy Boeheim, two of the best guards in the ACC, I don't know how you lose the ball like that. And for coaching, I don't know how you draw better inbounds plays. Like, I've been learning inbounds plays since my church league in the 2nd grade. How does Jim Boeheim not figure that out?
I don't know. Maybe they already had it figured out because, you know, on Wednesday it was Lent and they were winning until the minute 5 mark, and maybe they remember that they gave up winning for Lent. Because honestly, Nick, I don't have any other explanation outside of that. You mentioned it. Joe Girard, multi-year starter. You got a guy, Cole Swiner, started all season for them. Had some great games. An experienced player at Villanova. Jimmy Boeheim. These guys were on the floor in the final minute of the game, and they forgot how to inbound the ball and do everything to close out a game. It's been a problem all year, but it was a huge problem tonight.
It was.
Guys, it was a tough one to handle as Syracuse dropped 75-72. Let's see how it all went down in the Dome. The final game of the regular season, 7 seniors honored with all their contributions that they've given to the Orange. And in the early going, Buddy Boeheim got it going. That would give Syracuse the lead. They'd sustain it for the rest of the first half. Not just Buddy, but Jimmy got involved. That's 2 of his 14 points in the game. And why Syracuse was up by so much? Well, 3-point shooting was integral. SU shot 50% from distance in the first half, but when we fast forward to the second, nothing really changed. Buddy Boeheim, that's 2 of his game-high 30 points. He was fantastic until Miami got it going. A 37-16 run encapsulated by a few high-flying plays, but the story, it was Buddy Boeheim, as this point would make him the ACC scoring leader. But there's a game we still got to play, a 3-point ball game. Joe Girard loses it. That's 1 of 3 turnovers down the stretch. You want to see another one? Well, we'll see it after this play because rebounding was also an issue. Jordan Miller tipping it up and in. Here's that turnover. Charlie Moore. It's a 1-point game and Syracuse gives it up. Moore a chance to tie the ball game. He misses, but Miami the rebound. Miller, he led the team with 25. Put it up and in. Syracuse, who's the hero? JG3. It's not his day. It's not his mark. So Syracuse one last opportunity after Miami hit a couple free throws, but it wasn't to be as the seniors go home with a frown. And not just that, Syracuse falls to 15-16 on the season. First time they finished at under 500 in the regular season in 50 years.
That's incredible, Cam. And it's just a disappointing season, disappointing way to end a bad season. But you look at Buddy Boeheim, you got to look at the pros for this game. And the pros for the entire season is Buddy Boeheim, how well he played in this game, how well he's done all season. Couldn't get the win today, but man, Buddy Boeheim just had an incredible career.
He did have an incredible career, and he really put it all out on the floor there tonight, guys. 30 points, and it was efficient. He wasn't just chucking up bad shots. It was great to start the first half, close the game out well.
So we know what we're talking about, but now let's welcome in our reporter who is in the Dome to break it all down, Jacob Morris. Now, Jacob, Buddy scored with 2.5 to go in the game, but really fell off. Why wasn't Buddy an integral part down the stretch in offensive sets?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right, Cam? Because you talked about it. When it comes down to it, Buddy Boeheim ends up with 30 points. He was fantastic throughout. He was the reason the Syracuse offense was so successful for the majority of the game. But you asked it, right? Where did Buddy Boeheim go as time kind of started to tick down? I think it was more a Syracuse offense problem as a whole. The entire offense began to go stagnant. It was iso ball, and Buddy Boeheim wasn't even getting the ball in those situations. The offense went stagnant. A lot of that was due to Miami's pressure, and the result was no offense for Syracuse and no offense for Buddy either.
Jacob, we saw Buddy Boeheim, Jimmy Boeheim, and as well as Joe Girard play 40 minutes. They played the entire game. How much do you think fatigue went into that last-minute meltdown for Syracuse?
Well, for Syracuse this season, that's been the norm, right, Nick? These guys play 35-plus minutes, especially when you look at Buddy. He's top 10 in the entire country in minutes per game. But I think you're exactly right in that it has to play into it somewhat when it comes down to it. Because when you have a team like Miami double-teaming your guards, pressuring you 94 feet up the court, the result is you're going to have to move a lot. You're going to have to use your legs. In Syracuse, its main five in that trio that you mentioned had played the majority of the contest, had played a lot of minutes. That's when you start to see fatigue set in, is when a team is pressuring you. You have to get the ball up the court quick. It definitely had an effect, especially once Miami began to establish that pressure late.
A lot of pressure was on Syracuse late, Jacob. So many mistakes from the minute mark to the half-a-minute mark, which led to Syracuse unraveling. But were one of those mistakes more costly than the other? Which one led to Syracuse really falling into quicksand and blowing this game entirely?
Ian, I'm going to give you kind of a cop-out answer, and that's that I don't think any of them was more costly than the other ones, because I think all of the mistakes together were what was so costly, right? Syracuse has a 10-point lead with two minutes and change to play. That full court press starts to attack Syracuse, and from there it was mistake after mistake after mistake. And so it's hard to really pick one out of the lineup, because without each of those mistakes, Syracuse is probably in a position where it wins this game. Maybe it has a bit of a positive foot going towards the ACC tournament. All of those mistakes contributed to the ultimately shocking result that happened inside the Carrier Dome this afternoon.
That's Jacob Morris, our reporter who was at the game covering all the nooks and crannies of today's 75-72 loss for Syracuse against Miami. And on the other side of the break, our analyst will do the same. OPP is back in a bit.
One in three adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse,
Yes.
you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, pre-diabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back into our CitrusTV studios for Orange Press Pass with Nick Luttrell and Ian Nicholas. I'm Cameron Ezair, breaking down Syracuse's 75-72 loss to Miami in the season finale. And Nick, this game was plagued with really what the season's been plagued with: injuries for the Orange. They're without Jesse Edwards, without Benny Williams, no Symir Torrance. How much did injuries play a part in this loss?
Well, as we just talked about with Jacob, I think it played a big part, especially the fatigue down the stretch and them not be able to handle the ball and those constant turnovers for Syracuse. And you especially saw it without Symir Torrance. I think it wasn't a huge impact throughout the game, but towards the end of the game when they couldn't handle the ball and they had those turnovers, that Cole Swider turnover especially, that's where you really could have used Symir Torrance to be able to get in the game and handle the ball better than Cole Swider did.
I agree there, Nick. I think the loss of Jesse Edwards, obviously, it's derailed the Syracuse season. But when you have Jordan Miller scoring 25 points, 13 boards, he's a 6'7" guard. You could have really used a reliable body like Jesse Edwards anchoring the 2-3 to shut him down and make sure he doesn't get that game-winning bucket on the tip-in off the missed free throw.
That game-winning bucket was off the back of a 10-0 run for Miami. In the last minute 10, Syracuse completely blowing a lead. They had a majority of the game. Ian, what went into that absolute derailing of Syracuse down the stretch?
This team just got too confident, Cam. I think they went into almost a chew clock mode. They were playing not to lose, and they were not playing to win. They should have put the pedal to the metal and played their best basketball because they've blown multiple games this year, Nick. This has not been a team which has dominated from start to finish in really any game this season. It was disappointing to see a lineup with so much veteran talent in that final minute, especially Joe Girard, in my mind, who really collapsed and trying to put the game too much into his hands. It seemed like he was overthinking every big decision and not, playing aggressive enough, almost too lackadaisical.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I just think they got comfortable in that second half. We saw the first half, they were up by double digits, they were getting turnovers, they were playing good defense, especially Sidibe getting out into the corner and trapping the corners. And then the second half, it was just like, we have a double-digit lead, it's senior night, we're probably just gonna win this game. They just didn't play with that aggressiveness that they did in the first half. They didn't protect that ball, especially on the last few possessions. They obviously just didn't do enough to get the win.
Nick, Ian, it can't be all negative. Syracuse honoring 7 seniors before the game on senior days. And Nick, these seniors have meant a whole lot to the program. It doesn't matter if they've played here for 1 year or even 4.
Yeah, my heart hurts for them a little bit. I feel for them, especially a guy like Buddy Boeheim, who's been here for 4 years with the program. Obviously, Jimmy's just been here for 1, but they've been surrounded by Syracuse basketball for their whole entire lives, and for it to end the way it did today is just disappointing. And another senior, Cole Swider, we've seen production out of him this season, as you can see some of his career highs right now. And I wonder, he hasn't announced officially if he's coming back next year, and you have to wonder if he's going to be in the starting lineup next year if he gets a chance to play. I don't know if I would want to play on this team again next year, to be honest.
You know what? I've got the opposite feeling, Nick. I think he's going to have a bad taste in his mouth after this game. Who knows what they do in the ACC tournament? We know Jimmy and Buddy, they are not coming back for sure. But Cole, he's got a lot to improve on, honestly. He's got a lot of potential, and I think he could come back.
Okay, so we're sticking on the positives, and let's hand out our Orange Press Pass player of the game. It's Buddy Boeheim. I know this is not traditional. We usually give it to the team, a player on the team that actually wins, but Buddy finished with 30 points, the 4th time in his career that he's put up that mark, and his 15th 20-plus point game this season. So Buddy Boeheim is our Orange Press Pass player of the game. We're going to take a quick break here on Orange Press Pass. On the other side, you'll want to stick around because we're playing a new game. It's called the Pressies. We'll tell you what it's all about on the other side.
OTN is on all your favorite apps: Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Search Orange Television Network or OTN. OTN has its best shows, short films, and CitrusTV on demand. Family and friends can watch OTN too. Watch the live stream of OTN to catch live CitrusTV news, live from Studio B, and mornings on the Hill. On or off campus, watch OTN anywhere.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back into Orange Press Pass. I'm Cameron Ezer, and it's safe to say this season could have been classified as a disappointment. That was before today's game. Now I'm willing to portray it as an absolute failure. Not only did the Orange finish the regular season under 500 for the first time in the Jim Boeheim era, but Buddy Boeheim led the conference in scoring, and it didn't matter. Let's start at the beginning. With a host of experienced transfers, Syracuse fell to Colgate for the first time in half a century. Then the Orange gave fans hope with the thriller against Indiana, only to wrinkle up the faithfuls' feelings with a sputtering run through Big East nostalgia in losses to Villanova and Georgetown. But it's fine, right? ACC play is still on the horizon. Yeah, a poorly drawn horizon from a coloring book. SU lost 6 of 8 to open up conference play in the new year, only to reel us back in with a Picasso-esque type run, winning 6 of 7. A Jesse Edwards injury later, and now we're here. Syracuse ends the season with 4 straight defeats, leaving Cuse fans thinking the same thing about this year's Hoops team as they think about the weather, wondering when it will end. Now we're going to welcome back our analysts, Nick Luttrell and Ian Nicholas. Let's play a little game. Let's have some fun here. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Why not?
It's called the Pressies. We've never done it before, but the Orange Press Pass Pressies, it might be confusing to say. This is how it works. I'm going to throw out a few labels on the entirety of the season because you could talk about this loss, but it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. You guys are going to name players and points in the season. Good with you?
That sounds good. That sounds great.
Well, we're going to start off with you, Nick, and this is a Syracuse team the entire season that dealt with a whole lot and a lot of disappointment. I called it a failure. What's your biggest disappointment from this season?
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this around Syracuse, but
Go ahead.
Jim Boeheim. Disappointment.
Wow.
Just coaching altogether, I think, was disappointing. This is for 46 years at Syracuse. This is his first losing season. It was a disappointment this year for Syracuse. And, we talked about this earlier in the season, not as much towards the later parts of the season, but he didn't get the bench guys the production that they needed, like Symir Torrance and Benny Williams. Benny Williams didn't have a chance to really grow until towards the end of the year. He didn't have those opportunities. That's because of coaching, in my opinion.
This guy's a pro. You drew up the segue for me. Benny Williams, unfortunately, was the biggest disappointment this year for Syracuse. And he was Jim Boeheim's guy, the only recruit in this latest class. And you could see it on the graphic here. At IMG, he was a 5-star, 4-star player. 16 points and 6 rebounds a game. This year, he was usually putting up 0 points a game. His official average just under 2 points per night. Defensively, he occasionally provided some value, but there were too many duds, too many missed jumpers, and too many mental errors from the freshman. I understand it. We put way too much on him. We thought he could be a Jimmy Boeheim or Cole Swider-esque player. We thought he'd make that kind of impact, but he didn't. He fell way short. It looks like he'll be back, which is a great thing.
That's good.
Negatives galore from you two. So let's get to the highest point of the season. Ian, what would you label as that highest point?
Has to be the Wake Forest game. I was there in person to see Giannis, but to also hopefully see a Syracuse win, and that's what we got. It was a great game against the Wake Forest team that a lot of people thought really highly of at that point in the season. And Buddy Boeheim, he played a great game today, but you're seeing it there. He was doing more than just scoring. He was the entire Syracuse offense. 30 points and 7 assists. He was running the show, looking like he was back in March last year, and it was great to see.
Yeah, and I'm going with another home game. I think when we played when Syracuse played Indiana back in the early parts of the season, that win was really big. Indiana hadn't lost a game the entire year. Both teams were expected to be a tournament team at the time. Obviously, it's not the case for Syracuse. Indiana on the bubble right now. But Buddy Boeheim played well at JG3. Jimmy, of course, all played well in this game for Syracuse. And it was good. It was a great crowd, a double overtime thriller, and that was, I think, the high point. Even after losing to Colgate earlier in the year, it's like, okay, this could be a good team after this win. And obviously, we were wrong about that.
Yeah, but you two, the Syracuse team doesn't finish 15-16 without a whole lot of low points. So, Nick, what's your lowest point from the season?
ending it this way, falling to Miami. Granted, it's Miami. They're going to be a tournament team most likely, but still, just the way that this game ended, to fall in the last minute like Syracuse did was just super disappointing. And Miami scored 10 points in 1 minute. I just can't get that out of my head that they scored that many in 1 minute.
You know what's the game I couldn't get out of my head? It was a Pittsburgh game. That was the point in the year on the road after that Duke collapse in Cameron Indoor. They're a great team. We were supposed to lose to them. Syracuse was supposed to lose to them, rather. And then all of a sudden, you have a great chance to rebound against a really bad ACC team in Pitt, and you look lifeless. Buddy Boeheim showed up for this game, but no one outside of him got in double digits. And it was just really depressing because they were 2 games under 500, and that's when you knew, Cam, the season was done so.
But Ian, in that game, Buddy struggled. In this one against Miami, Buddy was phenomenal, and he might have been one of the biggest positive takeaways, but I'm not the one to hand out those labels. So Ian, what is your biggest positive takeaway from this season?
It was a tough season for Buddy, and it's because he didn't have enough support from his teammates like Jesse Edwards, a guy who really, when he was on the floor this year before the broken wrist, Nick, he looked fantastic. 12 points. 6 rebounds, nearly 3 blocks a game, one of the best big men in the ACC in my opinion. Jim Boeheim might not be his biggest fan all the time, but even towards the end of the year, you knew that Boeheim was just loving this guy up because he continued to impress with his athleticism, his shot blocking ability, and his craftiness down low. He's going to be one of the stars, if not the star, of next year's Syracuse squad.
Cameron, you mentioned Buddy Boeheim. I'm going to go with his brother because we knew Buddy Boeheim was going to be a good player. He'd come off of a terrific season, terrific March Madness season, but we weren't sure about Jimmy Boeheim. When he played at Cornell, he had a decent season, as you can see there on your screen, 10.5 points per game, about 4 rebounds. I don't think anyone expected him to come into Syracuse and do better than he played at Cornell and play for Syracuse as well as he did. He was able to shoot the 3-ball a lot better than most people expected, to dribble the ball and to make tough shots that really Buddy can make the fadeaways. Jimmy was able to get in there, get rebounds, and be almost the more physical older brother that he is.
So those are the pressies. This show is about Syracuse's 75-72 loss to Miami in the season finale. But in the grand scheme of things, this game doesn't matter because the ACC tournament is coming up next. Syracuse is going to take on a very familiar opponent. We'll break that down and the entire bracket. OPP returns in a bit.
What if one day you went to that secret place, that spot that only you know about, and instead of what you came for, you found this? What would you do? Would you stop and give it some thought? The truth is, all drug use comes with risk. Before those risks become real, before drugs turn your life upside down, before drugs take their toll on you and your family, know that there is help. You can quit. If you or someone you love is struggling with drug use or prescription drug misuse, call 1-800-662-HELP for 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, or go to samhsa.gov/knowtherisks.
Welcome back into our Citrus TV studios for Orange Press Pass with Nick Luttrell and Ian Nicholas. I'm Cameron Ezair, breaking down Syracuse's 75-72 loss in the season finale in the Dome against Miami. But guys, in the grand scheme of things, if we look from a macro perspective, this game meant nothing for Syracuse's odds, and for the ACC, it might have switched things up, Nick.
Yeah, it did, and I think like a couple things will change by the end of today. But the first thing that I see is obviously Duke, the number one. They had a mess season last year, and they come back this season, Coach K's final season, and they should have an easy road, honestly, to the championship game and to win the ACC championship. I think you also look at a team like Virginia, kind of a disappointing year for them. You know, they were expected to be better going into this year. They played that slow-paced offense. With the Cavaliers, a six seed in the tournament isn't what you want each year, and that's kind of, you know, disappointing for the Cavs.
Not for sure. Virginia has not been the team that they usually are under their phenomenal head coach, Tony Bennett. But I really think that Miami, this game was a huge win for them because they're going to move from the 4 seed, most likely, Nick, to the 3 seed. Because North Carolina, let's be honest, in Cameron Indoor today, they're not beating Duke. There's just no way that's going to happen.
Probably not.
So they're going to avoid playing Duke in the 3rd round, and that means if they keep advancing, they may be able to play them on in the championship game, which would look great for their tournament chances because they're on the bubble right now.
So you think Miami's got a good shot against North Carolina, possibly facing off in the semifinals?
Based on today's game, not a chance. Miami looked bad. They were overmatched by Syracuse, playing a similar team. They don't have enough size, and defensively, they cannot rebound. But they've played a lot of good teams close this year. They've come out with some big wins. They beat Duke at one point this year by 2. They've gotten the wins that you would think a good team would need over the top tier teams in the ACC. So theoretically, they should be a good team in this tournament.
Yeah, and I just feel like UNC, obviously, again, another one of those teams that's a little disappointing. I think when they play in the tournament, they're going to be a better team than they have been in the regular season.
Maybe.
Well, taking it from a micro perspective, if Syracuse is able to win against Florida State, they'll go up against Duke. But let's not jump the gun. Ian, what do you see in this matchup against the Seminoles? The 3rd time Syracuse will play Florida State this season.
I see a similar team. Both of these teams had higher expectations in the preseason, and they fell short of them, but they still have the talent, and they have competed with the top teams in the conference. So both of them could surprise some people. Florida State is a tough draw, in my opinion. You barely beat them in Tallahassee. Florida State gets the better of them the 2nd time around. They will have Matt Cleveland this time. He is a big-time player. He's made some big shots over the last few weeks for them, coming back from injury. So I smell trouble in this Florida State matchup. It's a well-coached team under Leonard Hamilton.
For sure, and like we talked about, Cameron, earlier in this show, Florida State and Syracuse going to be facing off, and I just think it's a bigger game than what we saw today, but it's still like it may not matter in the grand scheme of things when the next opponent is going to face the Duke Blue Devils. So I think when you look at Syracuse and Florida State, it may not matter the total outcome between these two teams. And for Syracuse, they've been able to obviously upset some teams in the tournament. Like that's what they're known to do, ACC tournament and NCAA tournament. I don't know if they can do it this year.
Well, Syracuse does beat Florida State. Then the Orange will have to face Duke, and it's a Duke team that beat Syracuse by over 20 twice in the season. The last time Syracuse lost to a team by over 15 points in both matchups, 1996. So it may not spell, a good thing for Syracuse against Duke or Florida State. But let's get back to this Miami loss. Nick, what's your final thought, final takeaway from the 75-72 defeat?
Well, I've used the word disappointing a lot in this show, and I'm going to use it one more time. A disappointing season that ends in a disappointing way for Syracuse. They had high expectations going into this season, and now we look at the end of it, or towards the end. Obviously, they still have the ACC tournament, but we look at the end of this season, and it's disappointing. It's not what we expected, and it was just a bad season.
You know what I didn't expect with all these pieces that Syracuse brought in this year, Nick? I didn't expect this team to fail Buddy Boeheim. I know people look at his stats, and he did have the ACC scoring title, but his efficiencies were really bad, and I don't think that's on him. I know his father gives him a big leash to kind of chuck the ball wherever he wants, but he has the talent to be the #1 option on his team. He proved that last year. Cole Swider, Joe Girard, those two guys in my mind, and his brother Jimmy, did not step up and become the #2 guy this year. He always had to be the de facto #1 from beginning to end, and it was really disappointing to see how much of a burden he had to put on in his final year.
So Syracuse finishes the season 15-16 under 500 for the first time in 50 years. For Ian Nicholas and Nick Luttrell, I'm Cameron Ezer. That says so long for the regular season. ACC tournament coming up next.